dentist protecting a business is a subject that's really close to my heart, because I think it's a hugely overlooked area. It's something where if someone takes the time to protect their family and their family needs, if something was to happen to you, if you were to die, if you were to be sick, you want to make sure your family is well protected. The business should also form part of that discussion, and quite often it's overlooked. We want to make sure that if a dentist, and they pour their blood, sweat and tears into building this tremendous business and this asset, if you like, but they don't necessarily protect it properly. So if someone was to die, the very least you want is to make sure that your family receives the benefits of that asset, and it's often not the case. If you were to ask a dentist, right, what do you think? What would you like to happen on your death in terms of the business and your share of the business? They'll very quickly tell you, yes, I want my estate, I want my family to benefit from this asset. And then if you ask, so do you know how that works? And very often when you take a step back and they think about it, they'll say, no, not really. Because it is a different consideration. It needs to be set up, it needs to be looked at in a different way, and it definitely needs to be addressed. Yeah, there's a couple of areas where dentists could be vulnerable. So there's two main things to consider. So one is if you're in a partnership or a limited company with directors, you want to ensure that if one of the partners, if something happens to one of the partners, if they die or if they have a critical illness, for example, and can't come back to work, you want to make sure that the remaining partners can, first of all, buy them out, okay, because you would expect that you would want the remaining partners to take over the business. But importantly, you want to make sure that your family receives the benefits of the asset that you've been building up all these years. So that's a real vulnerability, because what if you don't take action, you don't put things in place, what actually could happen could be that your estate, your family, suddenly own a share in this dental practice. They're suddenly a partner in this partnership, in this dental practice, of which they don't want to work in. They don't want really anything to do with it. The partners that are remaining don't really want anything. They don't want this silent partner in the background. It just doesn't suit anybody. If you put the right money in the right hands at the right time, it means that we would make sure that the partners have enough money to buy out the remaining share, which means the partners can maintain running the business, and the family's got the asset value within their estate, so they're quite happy as well. So that's a vulnerability. The second one is to consider, take a step back and think about, is there anybody in your business that if that person suddenly was to be taken out of the business for any reason, either they're sick or they die, is there a financial loss to the business? Okay, so does this person do a specialist role, a specialist job, which it would be financially challenging for the business to carry on as they were, because that expert, that person's no longer there. Now that could be someone who perhaps does all the implants, or some other specialist in there, but it can also be someone like a practice manager. Practice managers, in my experience, are so vital to the running of a practice, but often the job and the role that they do is limited to that one person, and if you take that person out of it, there's very few, if anybody, who can step in and do it. So that is a risk. That's if you take time to try and identify who the key people are, and just think about it in the cold light of day, and say, if that person comes out, there's going to be a financial loss. It's going to take us time to replace that person, and there's going to be a financial penalty for doing that. That's a risk, and that's something that really needs to be addressed. So in order to mitigate some of the risks, what you're looking at is, I've said this before, putting the right money in the right hands at the right time, and that's really what it's all about. So if we look at the two different potential risks, if we look at the partnership, for example, if you have a 3-person partnership, it's actually very easy to resolve the problem. It sounds way more complicated than it is, but actually it's quite easy to organise. It's more difficult to identify and get people to understand what the issue is than it is to actually fix it. So in order to resolve that, what you're looking to do is make sure that if one of the partners dies, you want to make sure that their estate gets the value of their business, their share of the business. So in order to do that, what you actually have to do is ensure that the other 2 remaining partners receive enough money to buy out the deceased estate, right? And that keeps everybody happy. That means that the deceased estate has got the full value of this person's asset, and it means that both partners can carry on running the business because they've now bought out the other partner. So that works. In order to do that, though, it's not enough just to put in place a plan. It's not enough just to have a life policy and expect that to work. It needs to be underpinned by a legal agreement, which again we can help people with. As I said, it does sound more complex than it is. In reality, it's very, very simple. It's really easy to do and it's really quick to do. But yeah, that's how you would do it. If you look at a key employee, again, it's not so much the solution that's the challenging part. It's trying to identify what is the value of what would be the financial loss of this person not being here anymore. And again, there are kind of starting point calculations, but again, each business is different and each setup's different and each employee would be different. So what we would do is make suggestions as to how you come to some kind of calculation where you can try and identify how much income would this business need on a temporary basis until they got this person replaced or went off on a different path. So it would just be about plugging the gap there. Identify what the gap is, make sure that, again, the business has the funds to plug that gap so that it can continue to operate as effectively as it was until that gap is plugged. And that's the trick here. Again, the underlying solution is really easy, and it's just identifying and quantifying what that gap is. And again, that's just where you need some help to sit down and really go through that with someone.